Sometimes the only way out is through. Friends, my name is Aileen. I am here to bring you your weekly horoscope where we cut right through the noise and we get straight to the most important messages for you. In this video today, we are going to be looking at all the Venus transits from Monday, September 27th through Sunday, October 3rd, 2021. There's a lot going on. It feels like every week there is going to be a lot going on. This week there is going to be a lot of transits that Venus is going to be making that I believe is going to basically lead up to a new plan, a new strategy of some sort, or a new spiritual or personal aim that we are hoping for. But something about that is becoming a lot more real. And that is what I believe we're ultimately, in a nutshell, taking a look at this week. Now, we are going to be taking a look at each of the transits. So the very first one that we are going to be discussing is going to be on September 29th, when Venus is going to be trining Neptune at 21 degrees. This could be sort of this feeling of divine intervention or divine timing. There is sort of an expansion of our spiritual goal, or some kind of goal that feels like it was so far away, but now something about that is becoming a lot more real, or something about that is becoming a lot more accessible, because there is this moment where I think we are going to allow for ourselves to just be in this place of grace. That is what the planets, I believe, are really going to be helping on this day with, especially that trine that is going to be happening between Venus and Scorpio to Neptune in Pisces. Now, Venus is in Scorpio, where it does not like to be in. It is at its detriment, but it's an opportunity for us to get very real with parts of our life that are signified by Venus. And Venus means a lot of things, but the way that I like to take a look at Venus is that Venus here is basically saying, in order for you to reach a better place, in order for you to feel a lot more valuable within yourself, Venus and Scorpio, valuable, we have to take a look at where the boundaries are being crossed. We have to take a look at where you don't feel maybe safe, or you feel rejected, or you feel isolated. So this is the third sort of phase that Venus is in now. It's about to finish up its transit in the sign of Scorpio before it's going to move on into Sagittarius. So Venus at 21 or 21 degrees in general, from my experience, has a lot to do with independence. This is a theme of independence. This is a theme where we're taking a look at how we can now start to aim in a new direction that we feel that we can really accept, that we feels true to who we are. So I think that what we're taking a look at on the 29th is the beginning of a more independent version of ourselves. The big picture of Venus right now is that Venus is in a particular phase, like the bigger phase that Venus is in, which I will explain at other videos a little bit more in depth. But right now where Venus is in is that we are changing the relationship that we have to ourselves. Something about the way in which we view our life and the goals and the aims that we have and how we reach fulfillment in life, that is in a period of change. Where we are at in that side of a story right now, or inside of that story, where we're at, the timeline that we're at right now, is that we are really taking a look at what boundaries we are not honoring. And because we're not honoring these boundaries, we are losing a part of ourselves that never gets to grow or never gets to do things differently, because perhaps there's some kind of fear attached to it. Because with Scorpio, we are taking a look at fears of rejection, isolation. We're looking at, just feeling lonely all across the board. Venus and Scorpio could be a place where we feel like we're sort of in this place where we're obsessed about particular things, and it just never allows for us to reach a place of fulfillment. This is not for people who have Venus and Scorpio in their birth chart. This is just a transit look at things, okay? So Venus and Scorpio here could really just speak towards part of our needs that never get fulfilled because we're obsessed in all of the wrong ways, and attached in all of the wrong ways to things that just don't allow for ourselves to just reach that place of a fulfillment. And so here it comes with, how do we go about reaching that place? Well, Venus and Scorpio says we need to have a proper space for it. We need to, really get real. We have to get honest with ourselves. And so that trine to Neptune, I think, is going to, on the 29th, is going to start this inquiry of, okay, so how can I change my aim when it comes to getting my needs met? How can I change my aim when it comes to how I operate daily and what I'm responsible for? And ultimately, all that we can be responsible for is our very own actions. Now, why do I say that? It is because Venus in Scorpio, that trine, at the time that they're making this trine, Mars is going to be at 9 degrees in Libra. So we're reviewing sort of a aspect of responsibility, or where we are responsible for our action, and how that now impacts all relationships, but also the relations to everything else in our life. Okay, at the present moment, what is it that we need to accept for what it is? The moon is going to be in its last quarter phase in Cancer at 13 degrees at the time when this trine is happening on the 29th. And I think that what we're going to be taking a look at is, emotionally, we feel that we have to sort of accept something that feels kind of sensitive to our story. That moon in Cancer at 13 degrees is going to be a moment, I think, that could come with a little bit of an internal breakdown, or in the moment, frustration that leads to a breakthrough. Because the only way out sometimes is through. We cannot avoid certain experiences. We cannot turn our back away from those things. And Venus in Scorpio is helping us to really accept this aspect of our life, that there are certain things we need to experience in order for us to rise to a bigger game, or a bigger set of responsibilities in our lives that allow for us to feel more confident within ourselves, that allow for us to have a little bit of this feeling that there is some frustration, but if we deal with it, we become so much stronger as a result of it. So I think that this trine is a divine intervention on a personal level for a lot of people. Now, the other thing that I am predicting here for the collective is that we could be seeing leaders that are going to accidentally spill information in real time, or we could be seeing some news that will start to show someone just really sharing information or secrets, and it just is happening. They're saying something that is just coming out on how they really feel, because the emotions will be so divinely assisted, where Neptune is dissolving sort of our need to have a boundary so that we can set a new boundary. So it comes with Mercury being at 25 degrees now, 2 days into this Mercury retrograde, where our mind is going to be sort of in this place where we're just going to intuitively talk. And so intuitive talking is going to be happening a lot. You're going to see that, whether it's with people that are in positions where they have a lot of responsibility. So you could be seeing that as well, that your boss or people who are in positions where they call the shots are all of a sudden sharing things that they're opening up, and they would have never really shared that before. The sun is going to be in Libra at 6 degrees, but Mercury is at 25 degrees. So what does that mean? That means we are going to be in a place where we could be really, experiencing communication that is shared that we had never really heard before. It's new. And it kind of is a divine timing. It's a divine intervention, it's like, it just happened. And so it brings this conversation of independence up. It brings, the theme is independence, because it's 21 degrees. How can we become more independent? Or what is this information that we're reviewing now that leads to ultimately breaking away from a part of our story that doesn't need to be real anymore? It doesn't have to be that way anymore, but it requires for us to step into the seat of independence. Okay. So what I'm predicting ultimately is that this is going to be an internal moment where we're declaring independence within ourselves. Now let's move on to September 30th, where Venus is now going to be at 22 degrees and it's going to square Jupiter at 22. That require for us to step up. And in order for us to step up, we have to sort of see first where there is fake happiness or a pseudo happiness that is occurring in our life, and we're seeing it for the first time, we're feeling it for the first time. The reason I'm saying fake or pseudo is because Jupiter is going to be at 22. This is where we're taking a look at high emotions that are allowing for us to see something, and it gives us an opportunity to do something with what we see and what we feel. And that square, Venus in Scorpio, Venus being in Scorpio, it's an opportunity for us to really see something for what it's worth, for how it used to make us feel. But now, because we're internally changing, we don't feel that way anymore, or that is a need that we don't want in that kind of way in our lives anymore. We don't want it or that person to fulfill us in that kind of a way anymore. So I think that what we're realizing is that there is a surface level happiness, and it is not allowing for us to have more depth, and there's no essence to it. Because the day before, we're in this graceful place. The day after, we start to see anything that doesn't have that kind of same feeling to it. And it's perfect that way. Again, the astrology is just always perfect. It never fails us. It really lets us know the very next day that there is something that just doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel good anymore. It's just feeling like fake. It's not the same anymore in our lives that it used to be. And we begin to realize that there is a part of us that has really changed ever since May of this year. May is when we started a completely new big picture with Venus. Venus is in a place right now where we are changing the relationship that we have to ourselves. And that relationship that we have to ourselves is really, really important that it changes at this time, because we're getting this golden opportunity to find new ways in which we are going to fulfill ourselves and our needs. But there is a little bit of a fear to commit to this new sort of future, where it requires for us to become a lot more responsible. It requires for us to be in a place where we are really allowing for the process that we're in to change our life and to change our story. And there could be a little bit of this fear to commit to it. A part of us could feel like, am I crazy for thinking this way? Am I crazy because it feels so new? The moon on this day is going to be at 29 degrees. Mercury is now going to be at 24. This is a challenging moment all across the board. I think because with Venus in Scorpio, we're taking a look at our survival instincts. And I think that our feelings are in integrity, yet the outside world isn't in integrity. We start to realize, wow, what am I watching? What am I witnessing? What is it that is unfolding out there now that I had not paid attention to before? So there is this hyper awareness around that as well. I think the other inquiry that we could be asking ourselves with 22 degrees is, which way should I go? What is the right thing for me? So we're weighing these things out. Which way should I go? Is this the right thing? Is this going to feel good? And ultimately, I think what I'm seeing here with Mars in Libra at 10 and Mercury at 24 is, will we be rejected if we take a path that feels so different and so new? And that is a risk that you need to ask yourself if you're willing to take it. Is this the right thing for you? And the way that you can gauge it is to know that it feels good within yourself, even though the outside circumstances may not give you that validation at this time. So that is what I'm seeing that the next day is bringing up. Regardless where you're at, I think that there is going to be a motivation here to advance somehow. Depending on where these transits are happening for you in your house, there is sort of this personal motivation to advance, to do things different, to do things in a way where it doesn't have that same yucky feeling to it anymore, where it feels fake or it feels surface level. And I think that that is ultimately what we're going to be taking a look at here with this particular transit on this day. Now, the third aspect that Venus is making this week is going to be October 2nd, when Venus is going to be still in Scorpio at 24 degrees now, making a sextile to Pluto in Capricorn. This is when we start to realize that we have to put an effort in order to reach new comfort zones, new needs that might get fulfilled. We are the ones that have to put in the effort. And that is what I think that we're starting to recognize here. I also think that Pluto is asking us to get real and asking us to get really honest with ourselves to how things are at the moment, not how we wish that things would be, but how are things in this moment. And then Venus in Scorpio is basically saying, okay, well, if things are like this in this moment, then we need a new strategy, which brings me to Mars being at 11 degrees. Mars is going to be in Libra at 11 degrees, and there might be a new plan that we need that feels a lot more practical. It feels like this is the first step that we can take towards making things happen in our life that feel a lot more honest to who we are. But also Pluto is saying you must remain humble as you're taking these steps. The moon is going to be in Leo at 16 degrees. So this is when we're going to really check in with our heart. Our heart is going to tell us, okay, this is what I want now. This is the strategy that I want to put into place. This is a plan. This is the next step. And we will know that that is the next step because Mercury is going to be retrograding now in Libra at 23 degrees. So it is perfect. This is the way in which it's going to feel kind of very perfect, a perfect alignment, perfect way to kind of end this week by saying to ourselves, I'm getting more clear on what it is that I feel and what it is that I know now, and I'm going to be able to make this happen. And if I get really honest with myself, sextile, we have to get very honest with ourselves on where our effort needs to go. What do you know now that needs to happen? Right? And that is, I think, the key question we're going to be answering. A lot of energy here, I think, that has a lot to do still on a personal level, but at the same time, it will deal with the future as well. So these are the last aspects that Venus is going to be making before it's going to move into the sign of Sagittarius. So now let's move on to see what all of this means for your specific zodiac sign. The way that I like to do my readings or the horoscopes or form the horoscopes in my videos is by taking a look at which houses the aspects are occurring in. We talk a little bit about that. And then I like to pull some kind of spiritual advice card. The deck that I will be using today is the system called Cards of Truth. It's a playing deck, but basically the system that I'm using is called the Cards of Truth. We're going to be merging these two. You can listen to your sun sign, your rising sign, or your moon sign. I definitely recommend that you listen to your rising sign because your rising sign is going to be the most accurate as to where the planets will be in your chart. If you know your rising sign, that'll be really, really good. You can listen to your sun sign. You can also listen to your moon sign. Sometimes people find that they get a bigger reading when they put all of these three aspects together. So Aries and Aries rising, Venus is in your 8th house. This is the house of all commitments, shared resources, sex, intimacy, taxes. This is a house of deep psychology. The first aspect, it's going to make the trine to Neptune in your 12th house. This is definitely going to be where you are going to be taking a look at a new spiritual aim and bringing in more grace between these two houses. The next day is when Venus is going to be squaring Jupiter in the 11th house. So this is where you're going to be taking a look at, all of your commitments versus the long-term goals. And also the 11th house obviously can be the house where it is taking a look at friends. It is taking a look at all of your affiliations. And then it is going to be taking a look at Pluto in the 10th house. Between your 8th and the 10th house, Pluto in the 10th house is basically saying you may have to have a more realistic plan when it comes to your legacy, when it comes to making a plan for your career. The spiritual advice card that I drew for you is the 2 of Hearts. You will know exactly the next steps that you need to take. Like knowing is going to be the key word here for you this week. I feel like a lot of you will understand what it is that you feel, and it's going to be so crystal clear where you need to now put your time and effort into making long-term goals happen, and then the exact plan that you need to execute. For Taurus and Taurus rising, the Venus trine Neptune is showing you a new spiritual aim and bringing in grace between your 7th and the 11th house. Venus is transiting through your 7th house, the house of all of your important relationships and agreements you have in your life. The 11th house is the house of your future goals. This is also the house of your affiliations. This can sometimes also be the house of technology, a new spiritual aim that is going to be emerging between these two houses. The next aspect is going to happen when Venus is squaring Jupiter to your 11th house. This is showing you where you have to become a lot more resilient, by releasing any kind of unrealistic expectations that you have when it comes to your career and how that actually plays out in your one-on-one relationships. Sextile Pluto is going to happen between your 7th and 9th house. And so what you're going to realize here is that you are going to be engaging or drafting a new plan so that you can become a lot more free. And it has a lot to do with your philosophy in life. It has a lot to do with somehow your ideas that you're wanting to put out into the world. So there is a transformation that's going to happen between your relationships and how that in fact impacts the way in which you really just feel free in life. That's what the 9th house can represent, or your higher mind. The spiritual advice card that I drew for you, Taurus, is the 6 of diamonds. The first word that comes to mind with this card is presence, and also really just what you need to do in this very moment in order for you to feel more value when it comes to your one-on-one relationships, when it comes to really reshaping your philosophies in life based on what it is that you experienced here in your career, in legacy, in your efforts to, reshape your career. This is going to be a very important week that shows you where you need to draw the line and where you need to put in boundaries so that you can regain sort of a new sense of worth and just to make things a lot more clear also when it comes to finances. So something becomes a lot more clear on the next action steps as well when it comes to the future, when it comes to freeing yourself. For Gemini and Gemini rising, Venus is transiting through your 6th house. Venus is going to be trining Neptune in your 10th house, where it's going to show you a new aim and bring in a lot more grace. So things may have been a little bit unclear when it comes to your career. That's where Neptune is at right now. And now what you're going to see is that there is a bigger plan here in play. Then Venus is going to be squaring Jupiter in the 9th house. This is the house where it's going to show you where you have to become a lot more resilient by releasing any unrealistic expectations in your 6th house. What is not working in the day-to-day that is just not allowing for you to become a lot more expansive in your higher mind, higher thinking, in your philosophy. And then it draws the sextile to Pluto in the 8th house. And this is where you're going to just engage in a more realistic plan when it comes to how you actually share yourself in the most intimate way, what makes you feel very connected to people that you share any kind of, resources with, or people in your life that are important, that when, nobody else is around, how do you share yourself with that person? There is a new sort of realistic, more approach that is going to be happening here. The spiritual advice card that I drew for you is the 6 of Hearts. The 6 of Hearts is a beautiful card. You are basically going to be receiving in a new way. Something happens this week where you're going to be receiving in a new way. You're going to allow for yourself to open up more and to receive in a way where you just let more love in. The 6 of Hearts is also a card where you're spending some more, real time at home, or you're investing sort of a time into home, or just feeling at home in your own body and just allowing for yourself to do the things that restore you. There's a clarity around what that needs to be and what needs to become more of a approach in the day-to-day so that you can just let this more in your life. Whatever this new plan is going to allow for you to feel just emotionally a lot more solid as well, so that you can be more connected to the day-to-day, be more connected to everything when it comes to your career, when it comes to your philosophy, when it comes to how you are intimately with the people in your life. Okay. And so that is what I think you guys are going to be shifting into and drafting a new plan in this week. For Cancer and Cancer rising, Venus is transiting through your 5th house. The 5th house is the house of your purpose. And so Venus trine Neptune is going to show you where you are going to be on a new spiritual path when it comes to your philosophy, when it comes to the way in which you think, your higher mind, the way in which you see the bigger picture now. There's a lot more grace that is coming through, showing you that there is a divine plan literally at play here for your life and for your purpose. And then from the 5th house, Venus is going to be squaring Jupiter in the 8th house. So something is not allowing for you to become more resilient here, because there's some unrealistic expectations that also happen when it comes to your purpose and how they actually impact the 8th house, where you are sharing your most intimate self. So something needs to change here. Something has to transform here. And then it's going to basically impact your most important relationships, your one-on-one relationships, agreements, business partnerships, because Venus is going to be sextiling Pluto. So there is going to be a more realistic plan when it comes for the future of this. And the spiritual advice card that I drew for you, Cancer, is the 6 of Spades. I feel like I've been just trying all 6s this week for everybody. So 6 of Spades for you. The first word that comes up here to mind for me for you is really boundaries. There is definitely a new definition of boundaries that is happening. Maybe you had not realized that something makes you super sensitive because you don't get to fulfill on your purpose based on how your commitments are to money, to obligations that you have to other people that are really close to you, or even what you think like your commitments need to be. It could be just that you're reviewing that aspect as well. So there is more boundaries that you're going to put into place, because more boundaries means that you get to be more in action and more in momentum and more doing the things that you know you need to put the effort in right now in order to make things happen. So whereas before you would have not been able to imagine that you would actually take these next steps to make things happen. So the 6 of Spades is literally a plan, but you have to put your efforts in. It's just that it's a nicer card because the 6 is a card where the path is open, like you're doing it. So this week, you're going to become really, really clear on what those next steps need to be. For Leo and Leo rising, Venus is transiting still through your 4th house. This is the house of home, family, your emotional experience all across the board. Okay, that's the 4th house. It is going to be trining Neptune and showing you a new spiritual aim when it comes to how you share yourself most intimately in life with other people. There's something here where you're starting to forgive yourself. There's a new spiritual aim. There's new grace that's coming through when it comes to how money was spent, how money was maybe taken from you in a way, maybe obligations that you've had to other people. And then Venus is going to be squaring Jupiter in the 7th house, how that impacted your most important relationships or business partnerships. There is going to be a square where you have to become a lot more resilient by releasing unrealistic expectations that you may have from other people. Emotionally, you may be placing unrealistic expectations on yourself. And so you're starting to come to terms with what that is. And then Venus is going to sextile Pluto, engaging you in a brand new plan when it comes to your daily commitments and meaningful work. Something is coming up here, like a new energy, a renewed energy when it comes to meaningful work. You are going to feel this week. There's a shift that is happening here. I think just because of the stuff that you're reviewing in the other houses, I think that once you become clear on what is happening here, the impacts that are happening on your most important relationships and, business partnerships or any kind of partnerships that are really important to you, you start to get this renewed energy and this new plan that starts to set in, and the new strategy that starts to set in when it comes to how to master the responsibilities that you have every single day. So there's going to be a more realistic plan here. Now, the spiritual advice card that I drew for you is the Ace of Hearts. I love this for you. The first word that comes to mind is medicine. This week is going to feel like a spiritual medicine. You're finding sort of the medicine that you need, okay? And it's a brand new beginning on an emotional front for you, something that you needed. Just because of you really admitting to yourself where you have not forgiven yourself, that is the medicine for you this week, Leo. Virgo and Virgo rising, Venus is still transiting through your 3rd house. This is the house of all of your shared ideas, your mindset, and it's going to trine Neptune in your 7th house. So these are the most important relationships, one-on-one partnerships, business partnerships, your agreements and bonds you have to other people. And you are going to see and be shown a new spiritual aim when it comes to what that really means. How do you really move forward in your most important relationships here? Now, Venus is then going to be squaring Jupiter in your 6th house, where you're going to see that you have to become a lot more resilient and release unexpected expectations that you have, or where your mind takes you when it comes to your daily obligations. But it's going to be something super small that you just need to release, I feel, for a lot of you. And then Venus is going to sextile and engage in a new plan when it comes to your purpose and how you share your purpose, how you communicate your purpose and your vision. And that is going to be where Pluto is going to be in your 5th house. That's where you're basically reviewing what, you know, your purpose is in life, a renewed sense of purpose. And there's a new renewed energy that is rising here from within your heart. And you know now what it is that you need to do when it comes to your mindset. And how to, where it belongs, right? Where your heart belongs and where your mind belongs when it comes to the subject of your spiritual purpose. It could also be for some of you that you're going to have this like renewed energy when it comes to your children or romance. But for a lot of you, I feel like it has to do with your spiritual purpose. So the advice card that I pulled for you is the 10 of Diamonds. The first word that comes to mind here is flow. You're going to come back into a flow. Things are going to flow again, but it has to do with you admitting to yourself where your unrealistic expectations are and where your mind takes you or gets distracted. And you are just going to sort of cut out the noise. That's what I'm seeing for a lot of the Virgos this week. For Libra and Libra rising, Venus is still transiting through your 2nd house. The 2nd house is the house of money, the house of what you manifest in life in a physical sense. It's also the house of support, like how you actually receive support. And it is going to be trining Neptune in your 6th house. Neptune in the 6th house, this is where you're really aiming for a new spiritual goal and becoming a lot more graceful on how to navigate the day-to-day. Venus is then going to be squaring Jupiter in the 5th house. Jupiter is showing you where you have to become a lot more resilient by releasing any kind of unexpected unrealistic expectations when it comes to how you want to manifest things, like how you do things and where your heart needs to sort of transform, or where you need to transform the relationship you have to your children or romance life, where you need to become a lot more resilient and you need to put in sort of action steps here to make that happen. And the way that you can put the action steps in is by forming a new sort of strategy when it comes to home. And that's where Pluto is going to be. That's where Venus is sextiling Pluto. Is going to be in your 4th house. And this is where you're going to basically just take a look at the future from a completely new lens. And you're going to redefine a new plan on like what it actually means to be comfortable emotionally, home life, where you belong when it comes to home. Okay. So there's a new plan that is going to be unfolding here for all of the Libras. The special advice card that I have for you is the 2 of Diamonds. You're really going to connect to everything that you need. And what I see with the 2 of Diamonds here is that you're going to be able to release all of the unnecessary sort of clutter. Like there's a clutter in a way that has happened, like not being able to see things exactly how you need to see them, or like simplifying things. So there's a simplifying that is going to come out of this week. That is what I'm seeing for a lot of the Libras this week. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, Venus is still transiting through your 1st house. The 1st house, the house of how you portray yourself, the house of you, your journey, what it is that you identify with. And so Venus is going to be trining Neptune in your 5th house. This is the house of your heart. There's a new spiritual aim here, and literally is coming out of, pouring out of your heart this week. There is sort of a graceful moment where you say to yourself, this is really what it is that you want to do. This is really what is most important to you. And it could also impact your children or impact your romance, or how you imagine your romance life to be moving forward. The Venus square Jupiter is basically showing you where you must become more resilient by releasing any unrealistic expectations that you have of yourself. And so that is going to be really key. And then Venus is going to sextile Pluto, and it's engaging you into a more realistic plan in your third house. And that has to do with the way in which you think. So that's really, really important here this week, because how you think is going to change, and you're going to change your mind about yourself and how you portray yourself to the world. There's like big shifts that are happening. This is like going to be a big period. And there's actually 3 cards that fell out for you, Scorpio. So we have the 4 of diamonds, the 6 of hearts, and the ace of hearts. You are going to really be in a place where you feel that you have a new template. That's the first word that comes to mind with the 4 of diamonds. This template has a lot to do with, you know, your foundation and what it is that you've been trying to, a lot of you have been trying to build a new foundation within yourself first, because something outside of you is just not fitting the picture. And so you are letting go of what used to make you feel really good in life, and you're defining a new foundation here, and it is going to have a new template. This new template is going to come with seeing really what it is that you need to believe in now, and what you are receiving at this time is all of the spiritual messages that Neptune is bringing you in the 5th house, which has a lot to do with grace, has a lot to do with what it is that you believe in as far as the divine. What do you believe about your life in general? What do you believe about yourself and your heart? And so you are going to be clearing up that subject. And then once you do, it's a new template. It's a new, fresh start. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, Venus is still transiting your 12th house, the 12th house of karma, spirituality, faith. And you are going to be in your 4th house, the house of home, emotional comfort, the house of family. And it's showing you a new spiritual aim here, and new shifts that will occur between your family, between how you define, you know, comfort, and you're going to be releasing any sort of unrealistic expectations in your 3rd house, your mindset. That is where the Venus square Jupiter is going to be happening. You're going to start to see that you may have been investing into the wrong places, the wrong groups, or something in regards to that is going to be changing here, where you are going to become a lot more resilient in your faith and what it is that you believe in, because you're putting in the boundaries that are necessary here. Venus is going to be sextiling Pluto in your 2nd house, the house of money and finances, and it's engaging you into a more realistic plan for the future. And the spiritual advice card that I have for you is the Queen of Clubs. There's some kind of movement that is happening here, something you've been waiting on, some news that you have been waiting on. You are going to finally hear these news, but you are also going to be in a place where you will know exactly where to be at what time. Like that is what I'm seeing here, is that you're going to see an opportunity here to bring something back into your life that was really, really important to you. The other thing that I'm seeing here with the Queen of Clubs is that there is going to be a new opportunity that you're going to have that requires for you to negotiate for exactly, you know, what it is that you want. Don't be afraid to negotiate right now, because you are going to be able to really get all the things that you desire, but it has to do with you becoming really honest with what it is that you can do and what it is that you cannot do. That's going to be really, really important here with the Queen of Clubs as well. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, Venus is still transiting through your 11th house, the house of friends, the house of long-term goals, the house of affiliations, networks, and also the house of technology. And so it is going to be trining Neptune in the 3rd house. Neptune is going to be showing you a new spiritual aim and bringing in a lot more grace when it comes to your daily mind and where you are engaged in exchanging your ideas. This could also be a small group of people that you're working with. The 3rd house very often for me is a house where we're dealing with a smaller group of people that we're working with. And so this could be where you're having an exchange of ideas that become sort of, wow, like this needed to happen moment, okay, between your 11th house and your 3rd house. The 11th house is going to be where you're going to start to see, you know, that something becomes a lot more real or a lot more honest about how people really feel. There's a share almost that is happening here between the 11th and the 3rd house. And then Venus is going to be squaring Jupiter, showing you in your 2nd house, the house of finances, where you have to become a lot more resilient by basically looking at unrealistic expectations that you had when it came to what you can do and what you cannot do when it comes to the finances, and then also the affiliations. Perhaps a lot of you need to just sort of dive into understanding the impacts on finances or the impacts on support. It has a lot to do around finances. And then Venus is going to be sextiling Pluto in your 1st house. And this is where you're going to engage into a more realistic plan on how you are going to be approaching some of these subjects I just mentioned. There might be a new kind of realistic plan for the future when it comes to how you portray yourself. And maybe you need to transform a little bit more on, your image and what it is that you are giving to people out there, how you're showing yourself to people out there. So there is a transformation that's happening here for you, Capricorn. And then the spiritual advice card that fell out for you is the 4 of Spades. This is a really, really good time to ground yourself now in all of the things that you have. What do you have right now that is really on your side? Understanding what is on your side, understanding how maybe even laws are on your side, people that are needing to be on your side, in order to see that you have actually the support that you need to make these big changes for the future. And some of it will have to do with technology. Some of it will have to do with new affiliations or new groups of people that you're trying to reach out to, or new sort of, aims and goals for networks or groups of people or organizations. Right now is the time to just sort of pause, to ground yourself and see what it is that you already have, so that you can make the best of it. That is going to be really important this week. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, Venus is still transiting your 10th house. This is the house of your career legacy and deliberate actions. This sometimes can also be the house of like administrative work. So definitely look out for that this week. It is going to be, now Venus is going to be in a trine with Neptune in the 2nd house, the house of finances, where it is going to show you a new spiritual aim or a new purposeful aim and bring in more grace, where you're going to start to see that the purpose of your finances and how it impacts legacy or vice versa, there is a bigger sort of purpose that is stepping in now. And it's sort of the right timing, the right divine time. And then Venus is going to be squaring Jupiter in your 1st house. And then this is where you're going to basically be shown where you must become more resilient by releasing any unrealistic expectations when it comes to how you really govern over your image, what it is that you show people, what kind of sets of rules you have with yourself, and how they impact the future, and what you need to sort of transform, a new set of rules perhaps that you need to set into motion. And it also correlates directly to Pluto in your 12th house. That's where the sextile is going to happen between Venus in the 10th house and Pluto in the 12th house, where you're going to have to basically just let go and put in a new plan when it comes to your faith, when it comes to what it is that you believe, what you know to be true, deep down within you about your life. And so a new plan is going to come out of that, new sort of spiritual strategy on where you belong in life is going to come out of this as well. The spiritual advice card that fell out for you, Aquarius, is the King of Spades. It's not an easy card. I definitely know this card really well. The King of Spades oftentimes for me also has to do with a spiritual reward that comes out of you letting go of things that you really, really wanted and sort of making a plan that involves the good for all of people, for all of humanity, that the stuff that you are going to be investing your time into in the future will be truly a legacy that you're going to be leaving behind, that will maybe be worth pursuing now, that will live on forever. Something about this has to do with some aspect of your career that you want to leave a legacy behind, or you want to take actions that will leave impacts forever. whether it is impacts for the world or impacts on the people that are most important to you. But you, in the process of all of this, you are transforming, and allow for that to be a discovery this week. There's a discovery this week of who you are becoming at this time. It's a beautiful process. That's what I'm seeing here for you, Aquarius. For Pisces and Pisces rising, Venus trine Neptune is going to be happening. Venus is going to be trining from your 9th house to Neptune in the 1st house, where it's going to show you a new spiritual aim when it comes to a lot of health subjects and also how you portray yourself in the world. And so there's going to be a lot more grace here that you're going to give to yourself, and you're going to see things that you have not seen before. You're going to become aware of maybe things that you are really in need of dissolving at this time when it comes to your image. And so here, Venus is then going to be squaring Jupiter in your 12th house, the house of your karma, spirituality, and it's going to show you where you need to become a lot more resilient by maybe releasing some unrealistic expectations that you have when it comes to your spirituality, when it comes to connections and deep connections you have to patterns that tie into other people, tie into your past, and you don't want them to continue into the future anymore. And then Venus is going to sextile Pluto in the 11th house. And this is where you're going to engage into a more realistic plan for the future. You're going to kickstart this. And it has to do with where you belong when it comes to groups, affiliations, when it comes to your future plans in general. And so you're aiming for something brand new, a lot of you. And the spiritual advice card that fell out for you is the 8 of Spades. This is going to be a time I really feel that you're going to be spending a lot of time with yourself to discover what actually resilience means to you. That is going to be the key this week for you, Pisces, is what does resilience actually mean for you? What is it that defines resilience in your life? And where do you need to put more resilience in, right? For me, what I'm seeing is it has to do with your 9th house. That's where Venus is at. It's showing you where the boundaries need to be put into place so that resilience can emerge more when it comes to free yourself, when it comes to attracting things in your life that feel better, that don't feel so restrictive. Okay. And so there's a restricting element here that you are leaving behind. And it impacts the way in which you share your faith, and it impacts the way in which you think that you belong in the world or belong to certain groups of people and friends. And so it's going to be a big week, and I'm going to draw one more card. Yeah, listen to your intuition, Queen of Hearts. I know I've been drawing a lot more cards for a lot of the Pisces, but I feel like you guys need it. You're going to be not only discovering what resilience actually means, but your resilience actually also is part of what your intuition is telling you at this time. You know, what do you really feel is right in your heart? That is a place that you're coming back to. That's a wrap on this week's horoscope. You guys let me know if you found this horoscope helpful. I'd love to hear from you, where you tuned. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're here for the first time, and I will see you guys in the next video.